So Michelle, I think everyone is here, so we can get the meeting started.
So currently we're missing Rachel, Kara. She's speech one.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, Alex is in the meeting, so I think we can probably just go. But just a heads up that Kara is speech one and she's currently not here. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the presiding officer, which is Caleb. So take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well and ready for another exciting meeting at the Future Leaders Gavel Club. My name is Caleb Van Brunt, and it is an honor to be your club president. And I would like to officially call this meeting to order. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our guests, and we sincerely hope that you will enjoy and learn from this experience. The Future Leaders Gavel Club is a Toastmasters club open to middle school and high school students in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Each meeting has three parts. The first part of our meeting is the prepared speech section, in which members will take the time to prepare a speech and deliver it to the club. The second part of our meeting is the table topics session, where members and guests can participate and improve their impromptu speaking skills by answering questions given to them by the table topics master with 1 to 2 minute responses. The final part of our meeting is the evaluation portion of the meeting, where the speech evaluators will provide feedback on the prepared speeches. Additionally, the functionaries will deliver their public speaking skills. To start our meeting tonight, our Toastmaster of the meeting is Rachel. However, Rachel is unfortunately not here yet. So would anyone like to be Toastmaster in her stead? Maybe William, could you possibly be Toastmaster as we wait for Rachel?
I can go ahead and assume the duties of Toastmaster, Caleb, but I will do my best in double managing that and Augramarian. Okay. Thank you, President Caleb, for the introduction. We have a great meeting prepared for us today, and let's get right down to business by introducing our functionaries and all the while doing some roll call. First of all, I'd like to invite up our Augramarian, William. Thank you, William. As the Augramarian, I will be noting words and sounds used as a crutch or pause filler by anyone who speaks during the meeting. Words may be inappropriate interjections such as and, well, but, so, you know. Try your best to avoid these filler words, and if you can somehow be a little conscious of what you're saying and even just pause between your sentences instead of saying an or an that greatly improves the quality of your speaking. Moving on to the grammarian side, I'm also checking for good English grammar, and the word of the day, which today is auspicious, which means to show or suggest that future success is likely. Basically, meaning that it's basically portraying future luck. An example sentence is the launch of the new program on the first day of spring was seen as an auspicious start, promising success and growth in the coming months. In the past, we've had word of the day competitions, and in memory of that, I'd like to try to reinstate that today. So if you are speaking at any point in our meeting, in our auspicious meeting, I do recommend that you try using auspicious, the word auspicious. Thank you, and back to you, Toastmaster William. Wow, that was a great introduction, Augramarian William. Actually, I see Rachel is back in the meeting. So would Rachel like to take on the Toastmaster duties?
Yeah, sorry. I was just a few minutes late, but yeah, I can I was prepared for that. Um just I'll just need a second to find the agenda. Now I will be calling on the timer, I believe, which is Alex tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. And as the timer, I will monitor time for each speaker throughout the meeting. I will listen carefully to the program participant and signal them. I will use green at the minimum required time, yellow at the middle of the expected time, and red at the allotted or agreed upon time. I'll also record each participant's name and actual time used. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Now I will be calling on the general evaluator, which is Michelle.
Thank you, Toastmaster Rachel. Now, as a general evaluator, I will be managing the evaluation portion of the meeting by calling speech evaluators and the reports from the all counter, grammarian, and timer. And finally, after that's done, I will provide an evaluation of the meeting as a whole. Back to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Now we'll be proceeding to the speeches. And since speaker one, Kara, has not arrived yet, then let's have Ethan, speaker number 2, now speaker number 1, go first.
Sorry about this, guys. So, as you can probably tell, I'm going to be talking standing up today. Also, I don't think Rachel told you guys what the title of my speech is just yet. So, I'm going to quickly inform you that the title is very long. It is called I've called my speech How Salvador Dali's art and throwing a clock at close to the speed of light might be more related than you think. And I will be talking about exactly that. So things to mention is one, I came up with this ridiculously long title for my speech because today I will be talking about the famed surrealist artist Salvador Dali, and you guys have probably heard of him before, but may or may not know that he kind of likes to make really long titles for his paintings. I mean, come on. One of his paintings is called Dream Caused by the Flight of a Bumblebee Around a Pomegranate 1 second before waking up. Like, tell me that's just not a ridiculously long name to call any of your pieces of art. He's also got such masterpieces as Ghost of Vermeer of Delft, which may be used as a table. So there's that. So I decided to honor the spirit of Dali with a super long title. And also, I decided to challenge myself today by speaking completely from my own experience with almost no notes today. So we'll see how that goes. So, good evening, everybody. And now, first, I want to start off with a slightly weird question. How many of you guys have been strolling through an art museum, looking at all the great classical paintings by famous artists of the past, and you thought, wow, this feels like looking at a physics problem? Has anybody ever had that experience before? No? Okay, don't worry though, I'm not going insane, although I guess I'm probably the only person who excuse me, I'm probably the only person who's ever had that experience before. But don't worry, guys, I'm not going insane. And let me raise my lectern a little bit. Because now, if you asked me that question when I was 9 years old, I would have agreed with you that art and physics had nothing to do with each other. Because it was at that age that I traveled to New York City with my parents. And no, this isn't going to be another travel speech about New York City. This is going to be about something much more exciting because a lot of people have been to New York City, and we all know what goes on in that. We all know what goes on over there by now. But I went to the famous Museum of Modern Art, which is where Dali's perhaps his most famous artwork, The Persistence of Memory, is located. And of course, at the time, I obviously didn't know anything about how it had anything to do with physics. But even so, even after I had finished staring at the painting for like 10 minutes on end, it stuck with me like gum to the bottom of a shoe sole. It stuck to the back of my brain, and I just could not get it out of there because there's something about it that was just so appealing that I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it was only years later, after I seriously began to rigorously study modern physics, that I realized that maybe it was physics that was causing it to stick to the back of my mind like that. And maybe art and physics are actually more related than you guys might think. Because let's talk about what the persistence of memory even includes. How many of you guys have seen it before? Or if you've seen a picture of it on the internet? I'm sure you have at least seen it in picture form on the internet somewhere, because It's so famous. It's everywhere. It's the painting with the three melting watches. Like you and with the cliffside and the infinite ocean in the background, and then in the foreground there's three watches that have gone all soft and they're like hanging in weird places and they just don't look like normal watches. Now, what if I told you that might actually be related to physics? How many of you guys have heard about Albert Einstein? That should be everybody. How many of you guys have heard of Einstein's special theory of relativity? Okay, that wasn't everybody, but that's okay because I don't know, some of you might not have gotten to that point in physics yet. But basically, special relativity says that weird stuff happens when you travel close to the speed of light. Like, for example, this neat little thing called time dilation. Imagine you have superhuman strength and you pick up your imagine you have superhuman strength and your alarm clock is really annoying you. So you decide to pick it up and throw it out of your window at 90% the speed of light. I know everybody's wanted to do that, right? Well, the special theory of relativity says that your neighbor standing just outside your window, watching your alarm clock whiz past at 90% of the speed of light, will actually see the alarm clock tick by slower than an identical alarm clock that they would be holding in their hands. That is to say, time goes slower the faster you're going. Now, obviously, we've probably never experienced that before because the speeds we're used to are like billionths of the speed of light. So we don't usually notice it. But if something's traveling as fast as 90% the speed of light, it's definitely a noticeable phenomenon. And I mean, if you just look at the clocks and the persistence of memory, they just give off the feeling that time is being stretched. Like they look like they're going, "Ugh," and they're kind of being weighed down, and they're kind of stretching like letting a ball of slime drip from your fingers. And as it turns out, I'm not alone. Many scholars have proposed that the persistence of memory is a subconscious commentary on Einstein's theory of relativity, and they have good reason because the more you dig into this, as I have, the more you dig, the deeper rabbit hole you dig into the persistence of memory and the theory of relativity and all that, the more you realize that Dolly and science are basically best friends throughout Dolly's entire life. Like, come on, this guy was a teenager and he wrote an article and published it in a journal about calculating stuff with scientific instruments that he invented himself. And yes, he did actually publish this in a journal. And then a few years after that, in the late 1920s, he moved to this place where university students live in Madrid. It's called the Residencia Estudiantes, and I don't speak Spanish, so that was probably not the right pronunciation. But it's this complex where university-age students live, but some guest speakers would also frequent that area. There was a bug in front of my face, but that won't stop me from telling you about one of the most esteemed guest speakers who came to talk at the Residencia Estudiantes. Guess who it was? Einstein, the man himself, came to talk at the same place that Dali lived during his university age years. So it's very probable that the two were directly influenced by each other. And not only that, but Dali was also friends with a lot of scientists and mathematicians basically his entire life, including Stephen Hawking. Yes, this guy got together with Stephen Hawking. How cool is that? He also was friends basically his entire life with a Romanian mathematician called Prince Matila Ghica, who himself was influenced heavily by Einstein's theory of relativity. And, well, you know it, Salvador Dali kept a copy of Prince Ghica's writings in his house. Surprise, surprise, am I right? And, in fact, Dali's last painting, which he didn't finish, is also inspired off of mathematics, specifically the so-called catastrophe theory of the French mathematician René Thom. So as you can see, Dali was quite influenced by science. And given that Dali was a surrealist and surrealists often painted stuff from their subconscious, it is very possible that he was subconsciously influenced by the ever-evolving field of modern physics and decided to represent it in the persistence of memory with his famous three melting watches. So that's it. Now, the next time you go to an art museum and see something like this, perhaps you will think about that painting you see in a new light, knowing that now art and science may have an unexpectedly strong bond between the two. Thank you, and back to you, Toastmaster Rachel.
Thank you, Ethan, for that very informative speech, and speaker two arrived just in time. So, Kara, if you don't mind being called on to give your speech when you just came in, then
Yeah,
we're ready for
sorry
you.
about that. I can give it now. Okay. Should I just start?
We're ready for you.
Break the ice. Introduce yourself. It's something that all of us have been asked to do time and time again since we were young. And yet, it's a question with an ever-changing response. I doubt you would introduce yourself today the same way you would have 5 years ago. In fact, this is a question that just 4 years ago, when I first walked into this very club, I had no idea how to answer. And that is why I would like to reintroduce myself today to those of you who know me and introduce myself for the first time to those of you who don't. So, hello. My name is Kara Lee. I'm 15 years old. I was born here, but my parents were born in China. I have one younger brother. I used to go to a tiny private school, but not anymore. I'm a good student with straight A's and lots of extracurriculars, but that's me on paper. And even knowing all of this information, you couldn't really understand what the real me is truly like. So to give you the full picture, the majority of this speech is going to be a very condensed journey of my life. From the time I was young, I was the poster child for good behavior. I didn't want to disappoint the authority figures in my life. I avoided arguments. I was an auspicious child. And interspersed throughout, however, were moments where I felt like I was a follower. I felt that I lacked identity compared to my peers. Because while they would have some show or animal that they were crazy about, I didn't seem to have any. But I didn't linger on these feelings. I was just a child, and they entered my brain and flew right away. Then quarantine hit. And at a certain point during quarantine, puberty hit. And as puberty hit, I began to develop more self-awareness. And I began to linger on those feelings that had floated right out of my brain earlier. And I began to think, I'm sort of boring. The problem was I felt blank. I felt like I had no interests or passions or opinions. And I felt that because of that, I had no personality. So what I turned to was MBTI, because it doesn't matter who you are for MBTI, it'll let you take the test and give you a personality type. But I didn't use MBTI in a healthy way exactly, because I let those 4 letters box me in, and I embraced the type of person that the test told me I was. But MBTI also did help me in a way, because I began to see traits that were highlighted in MBTI that I hadn't really thought about before. And I began to think that avoiding arguments and overthinking about who I was, setting high standards for myself, were all things that made up who I was. And maybe I didn't have some show or game that I was super passionate about, but I still had a personality. So eventually quarantine lifted and I went back to school. But my doubts about myself still lingered, because the school I went to was familiar and very small. So I wanted to find a place where I could stand among the hundreds and thousands of people in the wider world. And so I went to a public school, the standard public school. And it was a struggle, because I had had very minimal opportunity to practice social skills beforehand, and my social skills sucked. I wanted every social interaction to end, and I couldn't juggle between being socially acceptable yet unique. But over time, I got better. And as my social skills developed further and further, partially thanks to Toastmasters, so did my passions. And I couldn't really tell you how it happened, but suddenly I have those things that other people seem to have, but I didn't seem to have as a child. And I can tell you now that I love learning about MBTI, I love watching animation, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, I love writing books, I love philosophy, I love the amazing world of Gumball. But more than these recently acquired bits of myself, I can tell you who I always have been, and I just never realized it. I can tell you that I am competitive, I am easily stressed out, idealistic, insecure, open-minded, and I can tell you that I have always been all of these things, and also so much more. I am of course, also introspective. And as such, I've thought over the question of who I am time and time again. And although 4 years from now, my answer is bound to change once again, if asked to introduce myself now to break the ice, I can go beyond the basics and I can tell you exactly who I am. Thank you, and back to you, Toastmaster Rachel.
Thank you for that speech. That was very deep, and like it wasn't just a typical like break the ice speech. It was more than that. It was great. I guess we'll be moving on to the table topics now. So Angelina, if you're ready, then we're ready for you.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people have been getting back to school lately, and me personally, I also started school this week. So I decided to make this session kind of around the new school year and what goals and things we might have learned last year and things that we want to achieve this year. So I've made a list of questions and you can answer however you want, and there's no specific way you have to answer. So the first question is, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be? And I think I'll give this question to Michelle.
Why do I feel like I've been asked this question? But anyways, if I could give myself, my younger self, a piece of advice, it's to ignore others. Ignore what people say about you. Oh, have you heard that girl called Michelle? Yeah, I heard that she's so short. Also, I think that she's into like weird stuff and she doesn't like makeup and she doesn't wear dresses. Okay, so like other girls can do that. What do you mean? We have freedom, right? Just don't let other people's comments get to you. Oh, you're weird. Oh, you suck. Oh, you're weaker than others. You suck. Like, you should literally go back to kindergarten. Like, why do those comments matter? Like, just ignore them. When I was a kid, I was actually really sensitive. Like, really sensitive. I would cry to someone calling me stupid. Well, not like I knew it, but I would still cry. And I still am, but I've learned more. I've been more self-aware. Sure, those comments sometimes hurt, but it's just the best to move on. Don't just stay in the past. Move on. That's the piece of advice. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And yes, I totally agree. As long as you are satisfied with yourself, then that's enough. So the next question is, what is something that you want to do differently this year than you did from last year? And I'll give this question to Claire.
This year, if I had to choose something to improve on or work on for this upcoming year, I would probably say is to become more open-minded. Because when people are open-minded, it means they are less judgmental and they are more carefree of not only their interactions and relationships with others, but also in general, their experiences, whether that be in their school or academic life, or throughout other activities, just like our Toastmasters meeting tonight. And the reason I have chosen being open-minded is because being more open to not only the opinions of others, but also being open to change yourself for the better is truly fundamental and foundational to self-reflection and also being able to improve during a school year that has its ups and downs and can be stressful throughout. So thank you, and back to you, Angelina.
Thank you, Claire, for that answer. I definitely agree. Being open-minded is very important, and a lot of opportunities come with it as well. The next question is, which subject or class would you say is the most difficult, and how do you plan to overcome the challenges that you might face? And I think I'll give this question to Rachel.
I had a really creepy but good feeling that I was going to be called for that question, and I was prepared for it. Well, now that I'm taking high school and college classes at the same time, I don't need to worry about my worst subject, which was math. So, in this case, I'll be talking about this new English critical reasoning class that I joined a few days ago. The workload is very heavy and it's an 8-week class, and I'm already starting to freak out because there's like a group discussion due every week that's probably going to be about 400 words, and short responses that will be at least 500 words. And then the most delightful thing about English classes, the most pleasant thing you can possibly be doing, papers, yay. And I'm really worried about how I'm going to do in this class because it's not just an English class. I already took that. Now it's critical reasoning. So, in order for me to improve in the subject that I could potentially struggle in the next coming weeks, I think I should dedicate time to getting the assignments done. Maybe knock those assignments out first so I can worry about the easier stuff later, which tends to help, but it also works to get the easier stuff out of the way first. But if I don't procrastinate in this class, and if I give these assignments as much thought as possible and can use as much critical reasoning as possible, the class likely won't be so intimidating once I master the things that I'm trying to master.
Thank you, Rachel, for the answer. I definitely am not a fan of English either, but I agree that setting time aside specifically to do those assignments definitely helps. This next question is a really big question. It's just to describe your first day of school because everyone has different experiences and different classes. So I just wanted to see maybe one person's first day of school and how it went for them. So I think I'll give this question to Kara. Would you like to answer?
Yeah. My first day of school was actually pretty good. I woke up bright and early in the morning, and even though it was a lot earlier than I had been waking up before, like about 2 hours earlier, I actually woke up very excited for my first day of school and fairly energized because I'd gone to sleep at a reasonable time the night before. So I made my way to school, and then at the school, I went to my first class, which was math. My first period was math, which was a bit heavy for a first period, but still, it was something that I could handle. And on that first day, we already had work to do and we already had homework, but it was okay. I didn't mind that much because that day I also had my third period and fifth period, which were all less academic classes. So I hung out with my friends during break and lunch, and then I went to my third period, which was hip hop. And it was hip hop 2, and I didn't take hip hop 1. So I was a tad bit lost, and the class moved really quickly. But I believe I got along okay. And there wasn't anything being graded that class anyway. So then I went to my 5th period, which was video production. And this is the class that I'm the most excited about because there are so many of the things I like, including writing and movies and acting. So I'm very excited about what I'm going to do in that class. And thank you, and back to you, Angelina.
Thank you for the answer, Kara. I definitely agree. Meeting friends is always exciting after a long summer. For the next question, to you personally, what makes someone a good teacher? And I think I'll give this question to Kayla.
Thank you, Angelina, for the question. What makes someone a good teacher? This is such a difficult question to answer because there's so many angles you could potentially take this from. I personally have experience with a lot of my music teachers. I play a few instruments and I have a few teachers for those instruments, and each one of them is a good teacher, but each of them have a different approach to teaching. For example, let's take one example, my piano teacher. My piano teacher, her name is Miss McCall, and she is 83 years old, but she is still livelier than ever, and she does so many things and packs her schedule that it's really incredible how many things she gets done. But her teaching style is more of talking a little bit than just critiquing and minor details, like very minute details, and making sure those are honed in perfectly. Then I have another teacher, my viola teacher, and she is a little bit more critical and very detail technique oriented and very critical, but her criticism is good in the way that it helps to build awareness. Then I have, for example, my cello teacher, and my cello teacher is just a lot more free, but also focuses on technique, but not in the same critical manner as my violin teacher. So these are, for example, 3 approaches to teaching. All of them teach very well. All of them get the job done, but they have different styles. And what I will say is you can't really judge a good teacher from a bad one. I mean, of course, there are bad teachers, but for the most part, the teachers, it's really up to you whether you like their teaching style or not. Every teaching style has its benefits, every teaching style has its drawbacks, and I personally would rather judge teachers by their experience and how their students have turned out, things like that. For example, your math teacher, how much experience does he have? Is he very experienced, etc. And that is personally my criteria for determining how good of a teacher is, not just necessarily their teaching style or what they do in class. It's the experience that matters. So thank you, and back to you, Angelina.
Thank you for that answer, Caleb. I definitely agree. Everyone has different ideas of what kind of teachers they like and teaching styles. So your answer makes a lot of sense. The next question is, what is the most important thing you have learned as a student, and how did you learn it? And I think I'll give this question to William.
Going to school has never been my favorite activity, but if there's one thing that I can take from all of my years of schooling, it's that you should be open to new experiences. Future leaders, let me give you a story. In 10th grade, I was a cocky little sophomore, and I wanted to do big things, to explore new realms, and immerse myself in all kinds of different activities. Science Olympiad was having tryouts. I had been on the team the year prior, so I tried out again. I made the team, and I specialized in biology competitions and activities. Then I heard that my friends were doing cross country. I had been running for only a few weeks before, but either way, I made the decision, for good or for bad, to join the team. Then, when musical season rolled about, I'd never danced before, nor had I sang in the musical fashion, but I decided to give it a shot. Let me give you some background context into that year as well. I was taking AP Chemistry, which is rated amongst the student body at my school to be the hardest AP at our school. Of course, I was struggling under the course load, and being able to get along with the classes, finish the coursework, but on top of that, 3 extracurricular commitments and activities that were taking up my time alongside just pure academics. And future leaders, I loved it! Being able to explore these new realms brought me in contact with a lot of different people that I would not have necessarily met. For example, I met some very interesting musical performers, which I'm still in contact with today. I'm still in my realm and my clique of Science Olympiad competitors, and I learned to have a joy and love for long distance running. What my t-shirts still say, live, dream, run. And that is what future leaders I have learned from all my years of being a student. Be open to new experiences. Learn new things and try things that you don't know might benefit you. Table Topics Master.
Thank you for the answer, William. I personally wouldn't be able to manage all those activities, but it's great that you're able to and that you enjoy doing so. And I think that's about time for the table topics session. So I'll hand it back over to Toastmaster Rachel.
Thank you, Angelina, for those table topics. They were all very relatable, especially considering what time of year it is, and also helpful. Now we will be proceeding to the evaluation portion of the meeting. And okay, well, I'm not sure who evaluated who because the order was changed, but who was it that evaluated Ethan?
All right, thank you, Rachel. So I'm the one who evaluated Ethan. So Ethan, incredible speech tonight on the connection between art and physics. And definitely, I looked up the painting. It definitely portrays the aspects of time dilation, all that entails very vividly. The watches are literally warping, like time warp. It's really a great picture. Now, things I liked about your speech. Your speech, you stood up and you, from the angle of the camera, you were standing up, and we could all see your hand gestures. All that was there. You also spoke with lots of fluidity because you had lots of passion into the speech, and that's something very important. You had lots of passion, and you also did the speech from memory, like you told us. And pretty much it was very solid. There were no really hiccups that I noticed at all. You were very, very fluid, and it was enjoyable to hear you speak. Now, for some things that you could improve on, I think possibly get to the point a little bit sooner. You spent a lot of time talking about like New York and maybe like going to see the museum, and then just a little bit about long names. I think maybe you could have just maybe shortened that a little bit and got to the point about the painting and then the connection to relativity a little bit sooner. Other than that, also don't say like that's it right at the end of your speech and then go on to your conclusion. You can just simply omit that and then just say, okay, and so next time you go to see an art museum, blah, 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 you can see the connection to physics. And then instead of saying that's it. Other than that, I would challenge you to possibly show a photo of the painting. I'm not sure if you were able to do it with your virtual background, but maybe if you were able to print the photo you could have shown us, and it could have maybe helped to ingrain the message a little bit more, but we could all look up the photo too. So it was fine either way, but maybe just next time challenge yourself to show a photo. Other than that, you gave a great speech, and thanks again for sharing your two passions, art and physics. And I hope to hearing you speak next time. Thank you, and back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, why did
It's okay, Rachel. But next we'll have Claire. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Michelle. Kara, the hobbies and interests and little bits of you that you shared with us today have truly made us understand so much about you as a diverse individual. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters and Kara, today my evaluation will be divided into 3 parts: what you excelled at, what you may want to work on, and what you may challenge yourself with in future speeches. Firstly, I loved how you started off with such a great hook. Immediately, you dived into what your speech was about, and you introduced to everyone a little bit more about yourself, the fact that you've rejoined after 4 years, and this has made us all the more curious about your unique take to the icebreaker speech. It made us immediately feel drawn and interested, and it was different from the standard beginnings or hooks of an icebreaker speech. Secondly, I loved your confidence throughout the entire speech, starting from the very beginning all the way to the end. And I even noticed you used the word of the day. It made us feel compelled and drawn to your speech, and I felt so interested in what you had to say. It kept me hooked throughout. And now I hope to find some auspicious solutions to further elevate your speeches. Starting with first is possibly to stand up and take greater use of spatial anchor across the room. This way, it'll allow you to show more of what you want to convey, whether that be your hand gestures or even your personal style, like a little bit of humor here and there, or whatever you would like to add to further enhance your speech. Secondly, I would recommend focusing on the pacing of your speech. From the very beginning, I noticed you talked at a pretty relatively fast pace. I would suggest that maybe if you start fast at the beginning, throughout the speech, at those points where you want your audience to listen and hang on to, you can maybe slow down your speech. You can make your voice softer so they can even lean in closer, or smile and make it louder so that they can notice what you want to say. And finally, to challenge yourself, I suggest you consider letting your audience know about your speech's organizational structure by briefly stating the different parts of your speech at the very beginning. I loved how you told us all about how you would share the journey of your life, but it would have been even greater if you could separate your life into different parts, even using a metaphor to represent those different stages of your life and to compare how you have changed throughout. So to summarize, I loved how Kara used a captivating hook and confidence throughout her speech, but by focusing a little more on spatial anchor, pacing, and incorporating a metaphor throughout, I am so confident that Kara, your auspicious speech today will leave us with no doubts of your future possibilities. Thank you, and back to you, General Evaluator Michelle.
Thank you, Evaluator 2. Oh shoot, I got the evaluation order is a bit funky today. Well, nevertheless, let's have the Augurarian step up, which is William. Take it away.
Thank you, General Evaluator Michelle. Future leaders, I have seen countless improvements throughout the many weeks that we've had these meetings, and I'm delighted to say that this meeting marks one of the record lows of any crutch words, filler words, time fillers, or anything of the sort that you have been using in your public speaking. I'd like to first address some of the filler and crutch words that I did notice, and then move on to good phrasing as well as some areas of improvement. Starting with myself as the Toastmaster, I noticed that I had one total word of the day, which was auspicious, which cast an auspicious sight and light on the rest of our meeting. That makes the word of the day count 4 now. Moving on to Rachel, I did notice 2 pauses, but they weren't long enough for me to count them as excessive. So you had no other filler words or crutches beside that in your tenure as Toastmaster. Instead of, except for one little vocalization that sounded like an but that's already a great improvement from past weeks. Moving on to speaker 1, Kara, I'd like to first acknowledge some of the your filler words as well. You had absolutely none. You only had 2 longer pauses, which I'm once again reluctant to count as crutch words, because I think that excessive pauses far outclass any type of crutch word. Moving on to Ethan, you had no crutch words at all, except for 3 repeats. So you got cut off in the middle of your sentence, probably because you were directing your flow of logic. It's not a huge problem. You've already cut out almost all of your filler words, but if you would be able to, I would just suggest looking out for the flow of logic within the sentence and trying to finish the sentence before you move on to another thought. For Angelina, I noticed 2 ums and 1 so. Your filler word that you may want to look out for is the For Michelle, I noticed 1 so, which was pretty drawn out, so I decided to count it as a word of the day and nothing else. And just a quick note, that's for your table topics speech. For Claire, table topics speaker 2, no filler words at all. For table topics speaker 3, Rachel, you only had 1 like. So once again, great job. Moving on to Kara, speaker 4, I only noticed 1 and 1 repeat. So once again, very, very good job on controlling the crutch words. And Caleb, 1 repeat and no filler words. I counted 2 uhs in my own table topic speech, but I wasn't able to get any of the good phrasing or awkward phrasing. Michelle, general evaluator, 1 Caleb, 1 repeat, and Claire, no filler words during your second evaluation as well. In terms of some good phrasing, I thought that some of you had very good expressions throughout your speeches, especially Kara, who said socially acceptable and unique, kind of that pendulum. You're trying to be both, but you can't really find the balance. So that was great. I thought that you did a great job when phrasing yourself as the poster child of obedience. That was well crafted. And I also noticed 1 word of the day from you. From Ethan, I thought that you had a very good count of phrasing when you described yourself and art as kind of that gum that doesn't come off your shoe. Meanwhile, since you're very well developed in your vocabulary, I would recommend trying to adhere some of your vocabulary to the general tone. Your topic is very intellectual, so I don't think words like weird or insane really fit with the general persona that you're trying to portray in your speech. Moving on to table topic speaker 1, Michelle. I loved how you ended strong with that, don't stay in the past and keep moving forward. You sound like a politician there, a good politician. Moving on to Claire, I thought that you had some very good vocabulary too. Judgmental, that's good vocab. And for Rachel, I also thought that you had some good phrasing, though I would have wanted maybe instead of the word creepy, maybe auspicious. Maybe use something a little more positive and also get a chance at the word of the day. For Kara, pretty good overall. I thought that you can try to, and this is a general note for everyone, if you can, try not to use one of the 4 bad verbs, and they're not bad verbs, you just want to avoid them. They're to make, to do, to be, and I forget the last one. So try not to use those words. Try to use more active voice verbs like participate or orate, something like that, that lends more meaning and power to your speech. And that is all I have for my report today, my grossly overtime report, and I will hand it back to our general evaluator, Michelle.
Thank you for that lengthy agrarian's report. Now we will be moving on to the timer, Alex. Take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, Ethan, speaker 1. I got a time of 6 minutes and 40 seconds, which is very good. Kara, speaker 2. I didn't really know if to count this as an icebreaker or a normal speech, but I counted as an icebreaker. And you got 5 minutes and 18 seconds, which is very good. Michelle, table topic, speaker 1, had a time of 1 minute 24, which is good. Claire, table topic, speaker 2, I got a time of 1 minute 17, which is good. Rachel, table topic, speaker 3, got a time of 1 minute 59, which is very good, I guess. And Kara, table topic, speaker 4, got a time of 1 minute 56, which is really good. Caleb got a time for table topic, speaker 5, got a time of 2 minutes and 18 seconds, which is fine, honestly. It's only 18 seconds over. And William, table topic speaker 6, had a time of 2 minutes and 30, which is also fine in my opinion. It's just 30 seconds. Speech evaluator 1, Caleb. I fell asleep. That's my bad. I did not mean it. And speech 2 evaluator Claire, you had a time of 3 minutes and 18 seconds, which is good. Just 18 seconds over, but it's really okay. And William, the grammarian, had a time of 5 minutes and 50 seconds, which is pretty long, but I think it's okay as our meeting is a bit early. So that's it. Thank you. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Alex, for that short timers report. And now it's time for my evaluation and final comments. Yay! Okay, so here's my brief little evaluation of the prepared speech. So Ethan's speech, it just started off by talking about how Rachel didn't say the speech name, which ended up like moving into something relevant. But I think maybe like adding that part was unnecessary. And for Claire's speech, oh, not Claire, sorry, I read that wrong. Kara's speech, I felt like you didn't know how to end the icebreaker off. Just fine. So for the evaluations, I found nothing wrong with the evaluations, and they were all just fine. And I mean, from me, I can't really give any advice. Now, some general meeting notes. Great questions, Angelina. They were really good since school was starting and stuff. And also, I don't know if I was supposed to do this. Maybe it's just because I'm autistic, but I wrote down the people that went into red zone or overtime, and I have them in order. Caleb, William, Claire, William. Yeah. Yeah, that's all. So back to you, Toastmaster Rachel.
All right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Michelle, for your general evaluation. Rachel, do you have any final comments about or as Toastmaster?
I think overall this was a good meeting. We're only at 6:56, which means we did not go overtime. And I think the time everyone used to speak was standard. So I think this is an example meeting, honestly. I don't really have any negative things to point out this time. So, back.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel, for your additional feedback, and of course, thank you, Michelle. I want to thank everyone who participated in our meeting tonight for contributing to a successful meeting. Thank you to all our speakers, Ethan, Kara, you all did an excellent job, and of course, Angelina for our table topics, and all of you who participated in table topics, as well as all our validators and functionaries. So I just have a quick announcement. The North American Gavel Club's Table Topics Contest has been moved to October 11th. We are still on track for the September 11th joint meeting and the September 18th intra-club competition. Also, we'll have a sign-up sheet for the joint meeting on the 11th coming up shortly, hopefully by next meeting. So if you would like to participate in that upcoming September 11th contest, we will have that ready for you next meeting, the 4th. So before we officially adjourn the meeting, does anyone have any questions, comments, or feedback about the meeting tonight? If so, please just open your mic and share your thoughts. Any comments, questions, or feedback? All right, so it looks like there's no comments tonight. So I would like to, at 6:58 p.m. Pacific time, or 8:58 p.m. Central time, or 9:58 p.m. Eastern time, officially adjourn the meeting tonight. So thank you everyone for coming, and we will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great rest of your week, and see you next week.